Hello, my name is Jennifer Burton, and this is a review of Henry Nouwen's Our Greatest Gift, a meditation on dying and caring. It's published by Harper One. Our greatest gift is a meditation on dying. Dying and death can often bring about fear, but the experience of dying and caring for the dying can become one of the deepest experiences of love we could imagine. Ultimately, he argues that it is the greatest gift we have to offer. He encourages us to ask how death can become fruitful in the lives of others. Um, During this, he's reflecting on his own not so distant future death, as well as the deaths of loved ones and friends. He shares his views of death as a gift, an opportunity to impart hope to those around us, whether through our own dying or in helping care for someone who is dying. In death, he says, one comes to ask, how can I so live that I can continue to be fruitful when I am no longer here among my family and friends? And I guess that's a question we kind of ask ourselves once we start realizing our own death, kind of our own mortality, really. One can, in other words, make choices that affect not only your own life, but also generations to come. Choices to care well, to die well, and to embrace grace. If there's a limitation to this book, to me, I feel that it lies in the failure to deal explicitly as well. Well, just really deal with sudden death or a violent death. That's something that happens a lot. So that's kind of the fault that I had with the book. In the book, he's conscious of illness of a coworker, a relative with cancer, and the passing of a mentor. He ponders what he calls the process of befriending death. It begins by acknowledging our dependency on God, really, and in sort, kind of a second childhood. This leads up to the next step, which is being able to envision ourselves as brothers and sisters of each other. Those who are dying all over the world because of violence, illness, or starvation have much to teach us. Now, the third step in befriending death is seeing ourselves as parents of generations to come. This means passing on a part of ourselves to others right now dying. According to Henry, it's not a sweet sentimental act. It's a great struggle to surrender our lives completely. He writes about the ministry of ordinary people can provide by being with those who are at the gateway of a new life, as he put it. In the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus, he sees signs of both God's faithfulness and God's fruitfulness. Now, these signs help him and us understand that death can become one of the best gifts we leave to the world. Now, as I read the book, there were 7 questions I asked myself. He talks about befriending death and defines it as aligning oneself with the sacrifice of Christ so that our death, like his, can be a gift to the world. Now, traditionally for Christians, which was his faith background, death is understood as the enemy, as a foreign part of our existence that only came about from sin. So in this context, how are we to wait for death as a friend? But what does befriending death look like in the life of a Christian? It's something I would, like to ask Christians, from your background, from your faith background, how would you see befriending death? Now, he also talks about, how befriending death can help us understand what it means to be human. And it makes me wonder how we can take that and be in communion with the rest of humanity, like he talks about. He talks about the gift of dying being in unity with all people, and how it's a unifying power of mankind being born and dying powerless. So it made me think, that could be a common thread between humanity, is that we are all born and we all die. It's something you can't escape. So that gives us a connection as human beings. But it makes you wonder, if you look at it that way, it kind of changes your idea of how you understand your death and others. For me, it did anyway. Like I said, it gave me a commonality with everybody. Like, at the end, we're all going to meet our own fate. And the older I get, I guess the more I struggle with the mortality. So, another part in the book that really interested me was when Henry talks about death bringing us face to face with God. The idea of coming face to face with God is overwhelming. Surreal, I guess, almost. But I guess feeling this way says a lot about how I understand God in my life. I believe we have a very powerful God. I can't sit and claim one faith, because I believe if your faith, your religion is based in love and compassion, then God has to be present, because what is God if not love? So to be in the presence of God, I guess, is just very overwhelming, and it's a very overwhelming thought to have. On page 50 of the book, he defines caring for someone at the end of the life as helping them to befriend their death. Further on, he defines caring as being present while others fight their battle. And I really don't see too much of a difference in these definitions. I believe being present while someone else fights their battle is also helping them befriend their death. That way they're not doing it alone. I believe that they're both the same. Like I said, on page 50, he says helping them to befriend their death. One further on page 58, it's being present while others fight their battles. So in every culture, we have different ways of remembering the dead. It seems like, do we live if they never existed? Does the way we remember the dead affect the way we feel about our own death? Yes, to me, I will say. It seems like when somebody passes away, for the first little bit, it's very fresh, very in your face, I guess. And after time, it just seems like life goes on. You get forgotten. Every once in a while, somebody might mention you, but after generations, nobody remembers what great-great-grandma did or who she was for the most part. So, one of my biggest fears is not leaving something for Allie to hold on to. Something for my daughter to carry on in my memory, I guess, or just not being forgotten. And I think that's a lot of people's fears, is being forgotten, not being there for your family. So, in total, I would definitely recommend this book. It brings up a lot more questions than this. There's several other parts of the book that I could absolutely pick up and just go through and just talk about, like, the whole book. Even though it's a very short book, it's only 100 pages, 109 with the epilogue. I definitely recommend it. Thank you for your time. Have a great night.